My name is Maria Santos, and I'm a nurse here in Metro Manila. My days are a whirlwind of emergency room chaos, comforting families, and witnessing the harsh realities of life. I see it all: the victims of road rage, the silent suffering of addiction, the families torn apart by poverty and desperation. It's a job that drains you, but also one that constantly reminds you of the fragility of life and the deep need for something more. Honestly, a few months ago, I was just going through the motions. Like many of us here in the Philippines, I felt the weight of our daily struggles. The traffic jams, the rising prices, the corruption that sometimes feels overwhelming. I prayed yes, but often it felt like my words just hit the ceiling. Then everything changed. People started noticing it first. My colleagues at the hospital, my neighbors in the barangay, even my own family. They'd ask, "Maria, what happened to you? You seem brighter, more alive," even though the pressures haven't lessened. It all started on a quiet October morning last year. I was doing something I'd never truly committed to before a real biblical fast. Not just skipping a meal here and there, but no food for 6 whole days, just water. I know what you're thinking. It sounds extreme, even crazy. And believe me, it felt that way too. My body was tired, a little shaky. But deep down, there was this unmistakable pull, like the Lord Himself was asking me to do this. A quiet yet powerful whisper in my soul. I felt this incredible peace, a clarity I'd never experienced. My prayers, especially for my Kuya Carlo, who'd been battling the relentless grip of addiction to shabu for years, they felt sharper, more focused. It was as if a direct line had opened up between my heart and heaven. Little did I know this fast was preparing me for something beyond anything I could ever imagine. That morning, day 6 of my fast was crisp and quiet. The sun was just peeking over the horizon as I drove towards my mother's house. The roads were blissfully empty, just how I liked them. Worship music played softly on the radio, filling the car with a gentle hum of peace. My thoughts, still sharp from the fast, were on Kuya Carlo. I was pouring out my heart to God, pleading for His deliverance, for a miracle that no human effort seemed able to achieve. One second I was lost in prayer, the next everything went black. Not a gentle fade, but an abrupt, violent darkness that swallowed the world whole. A guy in a beat-up pickup truck. He was completely wasted, probably high on shabu at 6 in the morning. He blew through a red light, going at least 80 kilometers per hour, and slammed directly into my driver's side door. The force was unimaginable. My small Honda crumpled like a tin can. The doctors, bless their hearts, told me later that my heart stopped for exactly 17 minutes and 23 seconds. A clinical death. But here's the thing. Those 17 minutes, they felt like an eternity, like hours stretching into an incomprehensible expanse of time. And what I experienced in those moments, I'm still trying to fully grasp it, to put words to something so utterly beyond our earthly understanding. One moment, I was trapped in the mangled wreckage of my car. The metallic groan of tearing steel still echoing in my ears, the suffocating smell of gasoline and burning rubber filling the air. The next, I was floating, not just a little above, but high above my crushed car, looking down. I could see everything with an astonishing clarity. The mangled Honda flattened and twisted beyond recognition. The flashing lights of the ambulance and fire truck, their sirens wailing a discordant symphony against the morning quiet. The paramedics, their faces grim and determined, working feverishly on my body, my lifeless body. It was surreal. I saw the drunk driver, Mang Ben, pulled from his truck, stumbling to the curb. His face a mask of shame and terror, tears streaming down his grimy cheeks. He was muttering apologies not just to me but to a higher power, his pleas barely audible. I even saw Aling Nina, our nosy but kind neighbor from 2 blocks down, hurrying out in her faded housecoat, her face etched with shock and concern. A small crowd was gathering their murmurs like a distant hum. And the strangest part, I wasn't scared. Not even a flicker of fear. In fact, a profound, almost overwhelming peace washed over me. It was a peace unlike anything I had ever felt in my entire life. Deeper, more enveloping than any comfort I'd known on earth. It was as if all the anxieties, all the fears, all the pain of my life had simply dissolved. Then I started to move upward. There was a tunnel, but it wasn't dark or frightening like in the movies. No, this tunnel was made of pure, vibrant light, living light. I know it sounds crazy, it defied all logic, all physics, but that's the only way I can describe it. This light wasn't just illumination, it had a personality. It was warm, infinitely welcoming, and imbued with a love so profound, so absolute, that it felt like coming home after a very long journey. Every cell of my being resonated with it. It pulled me gently, irresistibly higher and higher away from the chaos below towards an unknown yet incredibly beautiful destination. My old life, my struggles, even my physical body felt miles away insignificant. All that mattered was this light and the boundless love it radiated. As I emerged from that vibrant tunnel of living light, I wasn't just in a different place. I was in an entirely different dimension of existence. Imagine colors that defied every spectrum known to human eyes, hues that shimmered with an inherent joy and depth. They weren't merely seen, they were felt resonating within my very being, painting the landscape of this breathtaking realm with unimaginable beauty. The air itself hummed with a symphony woven from everywhere at once. Not just melodies, but pure, harmonious sound that enveloped me, a celestial chorus of praise and profound peace that brought forth tears from a spirit that no longer possessed eyes. And the light. It wasn't the searing harsh brilliance of 1,000 suns, but a radiant soft luminescence that invited rather than overwhelmed. You could gaze directly into its boundless core, and instead of pain or blindness, you would find only an infinite warmth. An all-encompassing love that felt like the very essence of creation. This light was the source, the heartbeat of everything radiating outward, bathing every molecule of that glorious realm in pure, unadulterated glory. Yet amidst this overwhelming grandeur, something else captivated my attention, drawing my gaze with an irresistible force even more powerfully than the kaleidoscopic landscapes or the ethereal music. Stretching upwards from what I instinctively knew was earth reaching into this sublime realm where I stood were golden threads of pure light. Thousands upon thousands, perhaps millions, shimmering, pulsing alive with an almost organic energy. They weren't static, they moved with a gentle rhythmic dance like the breath of the cosmos itself. Each thread, unique in its brilliance, seemed to tell a silent, profound story. Some were thin and ethereal, barely perceptible, whispering tales of fleeting moments. Others glowed with a soft, steady luminescence, speaking of consistent devotion. And then there were those, a precious, awe-inspiring few, that blazed with an intensity so dazzling, so utterly brilliant. They seemed to sing with an unparalleled fervor, almost defying comprehension. My spirit was utterly transfixed. I couldn't tear my awareness away from them. What were these luminous connections? What profound truths did they signify in this boundless, unimaginable reality? That's when I heard his voice. It wasn't a sound that registered in physical ears, for I had none. Instead, it was a knowing that permeated every fiber of my consciousness, a resonance that vibrated through the very core of my being. It was deeper than any ocean, vaster than any sky, yet as intimate and personal as the most tender whisper of a loved one. "Maria," he said, and in that single perfectly articulated word I knew. I just knew. It was Jesus, the one I had prayed to, the one I had worshipped. The one who had felt so distant at times on earth was now standing before me, his voice resonating through me, through the very essence of my non-physical form, filling the entire expanse of that glorious space. If I even possessed a semblance of a body at that point, his voice transcended it, reaching into the deepest parts of my spirit. In that moment, I felt utterly, unequivocally known. Every secret thought, every hidden fear, every past mistake, every act of kindness, all of it was laid bare before him with absolute clarity. And yet simultaneously, I felt completely loved. A love so pure, so unconditional, so boundless, that it effortlessly banished all shame, all judgment, all lingering regrets. It was a love that saw beyond my flaws, beyond my earthly struggles, right into the very core of who I was meant to be, who I am in His eyes. It was a love I had unknowingly sought my entire life, the one true love that genuinely satisfies the deepest yearnings of the soul. His presence was overwhelming, not in a daunting way, but in the most magnificent and awe-inspiring manner imaginable. I'd spent my entire life seeing countless pictures, paintings, movies, and stained glass depictions of Jesus. None of them, absolutely none of them, came even remotely close to His radiant reality. He radiated pure love and immeasurable power waves of it emanating from His very being, washing over me, cleansing me, filling me to overflowing. His eyes, they held such unfathomable depth, such ancient wisdom, such boundless compassion. I felt like He could perceive every single moment of my life, every fleeting thought I'd ever had, every desperate prayer I'd ever whispered for Kuya Carlos' liberation from his addiction, for the alleviation of suffering among the countless people of our beloved Philippines. And yet despite seeing it all, He loved me anyway. In that sacred moment, a profound truth settled deep within me. His love wasn't contingent upon my performance, my perfection, or my worthiness. It flowed purely from His very nature, His eternal, unchanging being. Then with a gentle, profound gesture that spoke volumes without a single sound, He pointed to those mesmerizing golden threads I couldn't tear my gaze from. "Watch," He said, His voice a symphony of grace, authority, and infinite patience. His gaze filled with an unutterable tenderness that melted away all lingering questions met mine. "You see those?" He asked. I could only nod my spirit in a state of profound awe, my entire focus riveted on those shimmering, pulsating connections. I waited my very essence breathless for the revelation. What did these luminous threads of light truly represent in this glorious, unimaginable realm? My spiritual heart pounded with an anticipation so intense, knowing that the answer would unlock a truth of immense transformative power. Then with a gentle smile that illuminated the entire realm, Jesus revealed the astonishing truth. "Maria." He began, His voice a melody of pure wisdom. "Those are my children on earth fasting and praying right now." My spiritual jaw, if I had one, would have dropped in sheer amazement. Each gleaming thread, each pulsing strand of light represented someone who had chosen to set aside food to humble themselves to seek God. I watched mesmerized as He continued. He pointed to the most brilliant, dazzling threads, the bright ones. He said, His eyes reflecting profound joy. "Those are the ones who are not merely going through the motions. They truly mean it. Their hearts are pure, seeking me and my kingdom above all else." My gaze fixed on one thread near me, pulsing brighter. Jesus' smile widened. "That's Aling Cora in Cebu." He explained, "Day 3 of her fast. She's interceding for her grandson, lost to the streets, caught in the grip of shabu addiction. Do you see the power, Maria? Do you see how her pure heart ignites that thread?" A profound wave of understanding washed over me. "Most of my children," He lamented gently, "do not understand the immense power they truly possess when they humble themselves through fasting. When you fast with the right heart, seeking me and my kingdom first, you partner with heaven in ways you cannot possibly imagine. You align your spirit with my divine will, creating pathways for my power to flow where it could not before." Then He showed me my own fast. The 6 days I had gone without food manifested as a glowing, strengthening cord between heaven and earth. Each day had created a clearer, stronger connection, like watching a spiritual muscle grow with each disciplined workout. What truly blew my mind was what He showed me next. Jesus took me to the halls of time. I saw Moses during his 40-day fast. His fasting had literally created a sacred space for God's glory to descend, enabling him to receive the 10 Commandments. I saw Daniel, whose discipline seeking through fasting had pushed back dark spiritual forces that had held entire regions, as even empires, in their grip. I understood then that the battles we fight on earth, the corruption that cripples our nation, the hopelessness that ensnares so many, often have spiritual roots, and fasting is a key to dismantling those strongholds. I saw countless others whose unseen sacrifices had profoundly shifted spiritual atmospheres and altered events in ways they never knew. "Maria," Jesus said, his voice taking on a more serious yet still loving tone. "I am showing you this because my church, especially in nations like your beloved Philippines, is entering a season where understanding fasting will be crucial. The battles ahead, the spiritual warfare against corruption, against the stronghold of addiction, against the divisions that plague society, this cannot be won through regular prayer alone." Then he showed me something that brought tears to my spiritual eyes. I saw what happened when groups of believers fasted together. It wasn't just an addition of individual lights, it created what looked like spiritual storms of power, vortices of divine energy that could literally shift entire atmospheres over cities and nations. I saw the very air over Metro Manila, heavy with despair, begin to lighten. "But daughter," Jesus said, his voice becoming even more earnest, "not all fasting carries the same weight. Fasting done merely for show or purely out of religious duty without a heart engaged had almost no spiritual impact. But fasting done with true humility, with genuine repentance, and with a pure burning desire to get closer to me, that kind of fasting created powerful spiritual dynamics." Then he showed me something that surprised me even more. "Maria," he explained, "fasting actually changes your spiritual DNA. When you fast, your spiritual senses get upgraded. Extended periods of sincere fasting create new spiritual pathways that let you operate with greater discernment and spiritual authority even after the fast is over." "Many of my children," Jesus continued, "see fasting as a way to manipulate me to get me to do something they want. But fasting isn't about convincing me, it's about positioning yourselves. It's about aligning your spiritual frequency to heaven's frequency, tuning into what I'm already wanting to do." What Jesus showed me next was truly intense. I saw believers who were fasting and they looked as if they were wearing extra layers of spiritual armor. Their prayers during fasting were like precise spiritual weapons, hitting their targets with increased accuracy and power. But there was also a solemn warning. The enemy, Jesus cautioned, specifically targets people during fasting because he knows its power. Protection during fasting is crucial. Stay under the cover of my blood and my word. Do not fast in your own strength, Maria. Rely on my grace. Then Jesus showed me how fasting directly relates to spiritual authority. Each day of sincere fasting increased the believer's spiritual authority in prayer and spiritual warfare. It was like watching someone get promoted in heaven's army. Remember Maria, honey. He emphasized, this authority isn't earned by your effort. It's granted by me. Fasting simply positions you to carry greater authority, but the authority itself always comes from me. One of the most beautiful things Jesus showed me was how fasting profoundly affects worship. During times of fasting, our worship carried a special, unique fragrance in heaven. When my children worship while fasting, Jesus explained, it creates a unique harmony with heaven's worship, a beautiful resonance that brings me immense delight. Then he showed me something that made my spirit weep with understanding and hope for my Kuya Carlo. I saw how fasting breaks dark chains in the spiritual realm. These chains represented addictions, particularly the insidious grip of shabu, but also generational curses, spiritual oppression, and despair. When someone fasts and prays with unwavering faith, these spiritual chains begin to weaken and shatter. I understood then that God had been preparing me to fight for my brother in a way I never knew was possible. But then Jesus showed me something that brought me to tears again. tears of profound joy this time. "Maria," he said, his voice filled with unutterable tenderness. "Your fasting, your prayers, they partner with my ongoing ministry of intercession here in heaven. When you fast, you join me, you actively participate in my work in a special, intimate way. And this partnership, it brings me joy, actual, pure, divine joy." He affirmed, "It's not about earning my love, Maria. You already have that fully, completely, eternally. It's about partnering with my purposes in deeper ways, ways that move my heart and impact my kingdom." Jesus showed me how fasting creates spiritual bridges connecting different aspects of God's work, creating divine highways for His power to flow. Sometimes our fasting creates connections that God uses long after our fast is over, building legacies of breakthrough. He showed me how fasting also affects our spiritual inheritance, clearing debris from ancient wells, letting long-blocked springs of blessing flow again. Finally, Jesus showed me something astounding about fasting and spiritual multiplication. When we fast with pure hearts, God often multiplies the spiritual impact far beyond what we could ever imagine. One person's faithful fasting could affect an entire community, creating ripple effects that continue for generations. The spiritual impact of fasting, Jesus explained, often goes far beyond what you can see. Sometimes the greatest fruit of your fasting will only be seen in eternity. He also showed me how fasting relates to spiritual timing. Sometimes God calls us to fast, not for immediate breakthrough, but to prepare us for something He knows is coming. Fasting strengthens people spiritually, building their inner fortitude even before they know they'll need that strength. In the times ahead, Maria, Jesus concluded, many of my children will need to learn to fast preemptively, not just in response to crisis, but in preparation for what I know is coming. As my time in that glorious realm began to draw to a close, a sense of profound reverence and urgency settled upon me. Jesus, with eyes that held the universe and a love that transcended all understanding, imparted one final, crucial understanding. "Maria," he said, his voice resonating with an authority that shook the very fabric of existence, yet was infused with an undeniable tenderness. We are entering times where understanding the power and profound significance of biblical fasting will be more important than ever before. I am calling my people back to this ancient discipline, not as a burdensome religious duty, but as essential preparation for the days ahead. His gaze intensified, filled with a divine earnestness. "Tell them what you have seen, Maria." He commanded, the words echoing through the vastness of that sacred space. "Tell them that I am calling my church back to biblical fasting. The time is short, and my people need to understand these truths before it is too late." His words were a clarion call, a trumpet blast in the depths of my spirit. I understood that this wasn't just a personal revelation, it was a divine mandate for a nation, for a world. The weight of his instructions settled upon my spiritual shoulders, a sacred trust. Just before everything began to fade, as the vibrant colors softened and the celestial music grew faint, Jesus looked at me with such an overwhelming pure love that it felt like my very spirit would burst from the sheer intensity of it. It was a love that cleansed, healed, and empowered, filling every empty space within me. "Remember, Maria," he said, his voice a final, tender whisper that resonated in my soul long after the vision began to recede. "The power isn't in the fasting itself, the power is in me. Fasting simply positions you to partner with what I'm already wanting to do, what I am already moving to accomplish on earth. It is your agreement with my will, your surrender, that unleashes my power through you." And with that, the dazzling light, the harmonious sounds, the boundless love, all began to gently yet swiftly recede. The next thing I knew, the ethereal bliss was replaced by the cold, harsh reality of fluorescent lights, the sterile smell of antiseptic, and the muffled beeps and whirs of medical machinery. My eyes fluttered open. I was back in my body, lying in a hospital bed. The sudden rush of sensation, the weight of my physical form was almost overwhelming. After the lightness of that other realm, I heard hushed voices, urgent whispers, then a sudden shout of disbelief. "She's back. She's actually back." The medical staff, bless their hearts, were in absolute shock. I could see the astonishment on their faces, their eyes wide with disbelief. Not only had I defied all odds by coming back to life after being clinically dead for over 17 minutes, but I had returned with no brain damage, no lingering effects from the catastrophic trauma of the accident. My vital signs were miraculously stable. My pupils reacted normally. My motor skills were intact. They ran countless tests, scanned every inch of my brain, but found nothing. They kept shaking their heads, muttering, "Impossible, a medical anomaly." And "It's a miracle." They were right, it was a miracle. But they, with all their medical expertise and scientific understanding, didn't know half of it. They couldn't see the golden threads, hear the voice of Jesus, or comprehend the profound truths I had witnessed. They saw a body brought back to life. I had experienced a soul awakened to divine power. My encounter was not just a survival story, it was a divine assignment. I knew with every fiber of my being that I had been sent back for a reason, entrusted with a message that transcended hospital walls and scientific explanation. My life was no longer just my own. It was a testament, a living sermon of what Jesus had shown me. The world needed to hear this, especially our people in the Philippines, who so desperately sought hope amidst their daily struggles. I had been given a glimpse behind the veil, and now I had to share it. 3 months after that first miraculous return, something even more incredible, more deeply affirming happened. I was back home fully recovered, but the divine calling to go deeper was undeniable. I decided to embark on another extended fast, this time for 7 days, praying specifically for the spiritual awakening of our nation, for a breakthrough against the pervasive darkness I now understood so clearly. There was no accident this time. Instead, the doctors, baffled, called it an unexplained cardiac event. My heart stopped again for exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds. But in those precious moments, my spirit was instantly transported back to that realm of living light, that sacred space where true reality resided. Jesus was there again, his presence just as overwhelming, just as loving as before. Yet this time it felt different. He seemed more like an eager friend, radiating an intimate joy, ready to share a precious secret that had been nurtured in my absence. "Maria," he said, his voice a comforting balm filled with triumphant joy. "I've brought you back to show you the fruit of what you've learned, the profound impact of your obedience." Suddenly I was shown a panoramic view, a breathtaking vision of spiritual impact that had occurred since I began sharing my testimony about fasting. It was like looking down from a celestial vantage point, witnessing streams of light multiplying and spreading across the entire earth, but most vividly over our own archipelago, the Philippines. Each new light represented someone who had begun to understand and practice biblical fasting after hearing what Jesus had revealed to me. These weren't just dots, they were interconnected networks glowing brighter with every new soul touched. "Watch," he commanded, and my focus sharpened, zooming in on specific scenes unfolding below. I saw people's lives changing dramatically. I saw young men once ravaged by shabu now clean their eyes filled with newfound hope, their families embracing them in tearful reunions. I saw corrupt officials once seemingly untouchable, facing justice as a wave of integrity swept through their agencies, fueled by persistent prayer and fasting from humble communities. I saw families torn apart by generational curses and unspoken bitterness finding healing and a reconciliation. Sicknesses deemed incurable by earthly doctors simply vanished as people prayed and fasted with newfound faith. It was a tangible, visible demonstration of his power unleashed through the combined obedience of his people. What touched me most, what truly brought tears to my eyes in that divine presence, was witnessing the intimate moments between these people and Jesus during their fasts. Each sacrifice of food had created a special, consecrated space, a silent chamber within their souls for deep communion with Him. I saw ordinary Filipinos praying in their small homes and crowded jeepneys. Even in the bustling markets, their spiritual threads blazing brightly as they connected with their Savior. Their hunger for God was palpable, and His response was immediate and profound. "Do you see Maria?" Jesus asked, His voice echoing with triumph and boundless affection. "What I showed you was not just for you. It was for my beloved church, for every single one of my children, and most especially for your beloved Philippines. Every truth you've shared, every seed of understanding you've sown, has planted roots that are now bearing abundant fruit." And He showed me something that made me cry again, tears of overwhelming joy and humility. Every time someone applied these truths about fasting in their life, it created a magnificent ripple effect that impacted not just their personal journey, but generations to come. These ripples weren't just small circles, they were expanding, intertwining, creating powerful waves of revival, preparing the way for something far greater than any of us could ever imagine. It was a cascade of divine momentum, gathering strength, building towards an unparalleled outpouring of His Spirit. My sharing wasn't just a story, it was a catalyst for transformation, a spark igniting a divine fire across our islands. As my second spiritual journey to that realm of living light reached its conclusion, Jesus gave me one final, deeply impactful understanding. His presence, warm and unwavering, filled me with a truth so profound, it transformed my very essence. "Maria," He said, His voice resonating with an authority that was both majestic and intimately personal. "The days ahead will require my people to walk in levels of spiritual authority they have never known before. The challenges will intensify, the darkness will press in, but my light in them will shine brighter still. What I showed you about fasting isn't optional, it's essential preparation for what is coming, for the great outpouring of my Spirit and for the intensified spiritual battles that will undoubtedly arise." He revealed how the collective corporate understanding and practice of biblical fasting was creating a powerful new spiritual dynamic in His church, especially within our nation. As more and more believers began to grasp and act upon these truths, their combined spiritual authority was not merely resisting darkness, it was actively pushing back darkness in ways never seen before. It was like watching an army once scattered and fighting individual skirmishes, now uniting, becoming a formidable force that could truly shift the tide of spiritual warfare over the Philippines. "Tell them again, Maria," Jesus commanded, His voice filled with an undeniable urgency. "But this time tell them with the authority of one who has seen the fruit. Tell them what transformation looks like. Tell them that I am calling my church back to biblical fasting, not as a burdensome religious duty, not as a legalistic requirement, but as preparation for the greatest outpouring of my Spirit they've ever seen, a revival that will touch every island, every family, every heart." Just before everything began to gently fade, before the radiant light softened and the celestial music receded into the background, Jesus looked at me with such an overwhelming, unconditional love that it felt like my spirit would burst from the sheer intensity of it. It was a love that healed every wound, filled every void, and affirmed my every fiber. "Tell them, Maria," He whispered, His voice a final, tender echo that resonated deeply within my soul, a message meant for every longing heart. "Tell them that I am not calling them to fasting to earn my love. They already have that completely, unconditionally, eternally. My love for them is boundless and freely given. I am calling them to fasting because I want to entrust them with my power. The darkness is increasing, yes, but through prayer and fasting, my light in them will shine brighter still, illuminating every shadow, piercing every night. This is not about religion, Maria. It is about a deeper relationship, a profound partnership, and a glorious transformation for my people, for my beloved Philippines. Then, like waking from the most vivid, life-altering dream, I returned to my body once again in the sterile environment of the hospital. But this second experience left me with an even deeper, unshakable conviction. It solidified every truth, every command. I knew with absolute certainty why God had allowed me to glimpse behind the veil to witness the spiritual mechanics of His kingdom. Jesus is unequivocally calling His church to rediscover the profound, transformative power of biblical fasting, not as a means to manipulate God or to earn His favor, but as a consecrated means of positioning ourselves to partner with heaven, to align with His purposes in these crucial, pivotal times. And the fruit, it's undeniable. My Kuya Carlo, he's been clean now for 8 blessed months. 8 months free from the crushing grip of Shabu. The breakthrough, the genuine, lasting transformation came during my 3rd extended fast. After these experiences. Coincidence? I don't think so. Not when I've seen the spiritual threads, heard the divine commands, and witnessed the unseen power. This isn't just a story. It's a living, breathing testimony to God's faithfulness and the power unleashed when we simply obey. So the question isn't whether Jesus is calling us to fast. He clearly is. The question for each one of us, for every single Filipino listening to this, is how will we respond? If you're watching this video, believe me, it's not by accident. Jesus is personally inviting you into a deeper understanding of fasting, not as a heavy religious obligation, but as an extraordinary opportunity for profound partnership with heaven. The spiritual realm, filled with its unseen battles and divine strategies, is far more real and impactful than anything we can perceive with our physical eyes. And through biblical fasting, we can step into that reality, partnering with heaven in ways that will not only transform our own lives, but also impact generations to come, bringing light and hope to our communities, to our nation. The time is now. Jesus is calling, and He's waiting for His church to respond. If this story has ignited something within your heart, if you feel that stirring to seek God in a deeper way, I urge you to consider what He might be asking of you. And if you want to hear more powerful testimonies like this or learn how to practically deepen your faith through biblical principles, please subscribe to our channel, like this video to help us spread this message, and leave a comment below, telling us your thoughts and what God is speaking to you. Your engagement helps us share these transformative truths with more people across the Philippines and beyond. Together, mga kapatid, we can see unimaginable transformation. So what is the profound, urgent message woven through Maria's extraordinary journey? It's this: God is actively calling His church right now to rediscover the ancient, transformative power of biblical fasting. This isn't some dusty, forgotten ritual from a bygone era. It's a living, breathing, and incredibly potent spiritual discipline designed to unlock divine power in your life and in the world around you. This isn't about trying to manipulate God or earn His affection. Remember, you already have His boundless, unconditional love. Instead, it's about positioning yourself to partner with what He is already doing, to align with His divine purposes for your life, your family, and our beloved nation, the Philippines. This is more than just a captivating story. It's a direct divine invitation to step into a new dimension of faith and power. If you want to hear more powerful, life-changing testimonies like Maria's, or if you wish to learn practical steps on how to deepen your faith, apply biblical principles to your daily life, and effectively practice biblical fasting, then we invite you to become a vital part of our growing community here at Pinoy Faith Stories.